You wake up, and the first thing you notice is that nothing is moving. Not the air, not the paper screens, not the thin curtain hanging in the doorway. It is barely past dawn. The room is already warm, and you are already wet. Not from working, not from working, from lying still. You sit up. Sweat runs down your back, and it does not cool you. It runs, and it sits there, and it studies not. It is the 7th month. You are in Edo, and this is the stretch of the year that everyone who lives here quietly dreads, and nobody writes home about, because nothing dramatic happens. Nobody freezes. Nothing collapses. The city does not close. It is just that for about 2 months, the air will not take your sweat. Everybody wants to talk about how cold Japan got. That is a real question, and it has real answers, and we have spent whole videos on it. But the people who actually lived here would have told you that you were asking about the wrong half of the year, because winter is a problem you can add to. You put on more. You move closer to the fire. You burn something. Every question winter asks you has an answer you can carry in your hands. Summer takes things away. And what it takes away is your body's only method of cooling itself. So, how do you live through 2 months of that? Wearing what the government tells you to wear, on a date the government sets, inside a wooden building with no way to make anything cold. And why does the answer end with a room full of samurai deliberately terrifying each other in the dark? Start with the number, because the number is not the one people expect. Edo is not extraordinarily hot. It has never been extraordinarily hot. Modern measurements for the same city give an average August high of 31.4 degrees Celsius. That is warm. It is not remarkable. Plenty of places on Earth are hotter, and most of them are famous for it. Now add the second number, and the second number is the one that matters. Average relative humidity in August, 72%. In July, 73%. In January and February, 48%. So the air in high summer is holding roughly half again as much water as the air in deep winter, and it is holding it at 31 degrees. Here is what that does, and I want to be careful and exact about it, because this is the whole mechanism. Your body runs at about 37 degrees. When you are hot, the main way you get rid of heat is not by radiating it and not by breathing it out. It is by sweating. Liquid water on your skin turns into vapor, and to make that change it has to absorb a large amount of energy. It takes that energy out of you. That is the cooling, not the wetness. The evaporation, which means sweat only works if the air is willing to accept the water, and air that is already 72% full is not very willing. As air approaches saturation, the rate of evaporation drops sharply. Less water leaves your skin, less energy leaves with it, and the heat you generate simply stays inside you. There is a way to put both numbers into one figure. It is called wet bulb temperature, and it is what a thermometer reads with a wet cloth wrapped around it. It is, roughly, the coldest a wet thing can get in that air, which makes it the coldest a sweating body can get in that air, which makes it the coldest a sweating body can get. I ran the standard calculation. 31.4 degrees at 72% humidity gives a wet bulb of about 27 degrees. Take the same air temperature and give it January's humidity instead. 23 degrees. The humidity alone is worth 4 degrees of cooling that you do not get. But here is the comparison that actually explains the whole video. Take a genuinely hot dry day, 35 degrees at 50% humidity. Higher air temperature by nearly 4 degrees. Its wet bulb is 26.6, lower. Not by much, but lower. A body sweating at 35 degrees in dry air can get itself cooler than a body sweating at 31 degrees in Edo. That is the sentence to hold on to. In this climate, the thermometer lies to you. 31 degrees here is not 31 degrees somewhere else. It is harder, and it is harder in a way that no amount of shade, no amount of rest, and no amount of drinking will fix, because the problem is not that you are running out of water. The problem is that the water is not leaving. So look at what you are living inside, because the building is the first answer. If you have watched this channel before, you know that the Japanese house is famously bad at holding heat in winter. What you may not know is that this is not a failure. It is a choice, and this is the season the choice was made for. The house is built to move air because moving air is the only thing that helps when evaporation is losing. A breeze does not lower the temperature. It drags the saturated layer off your skin and replaces it with air that has slightly more room in it. And slightly more room is the difference between sweat that works and sweat that does not. So in summer, you take the house apart. Interior partitions come out and go into storage. Rooms that were separate in winter become one long shaded corridor with openings at both ends. The eaves are already deep enough to keep direct sun off the floor entirely. Outside them you hang sudare, thin split bamboo blinds, hung on the outside of the building rather than the inside. That detail is the whole point. A blind on the inside stops light after the sun has already heated the room. A blind on the outside stops the sun before it arrives. Against the west wall, where the afternoon comes in low and there is no eave deep enough to stop it, you lean a yoshizu, a tall screen of bound reeds, propped against the house like a wall that was not there yesterday. And in some doorways, the sliding panels themselves are swapped for reed ones, so that a closed door still passes air. Understand what all of this is doing. None of it makes anything cold. There is no cold in this system anywhere. Every piece of it is doing one thing, keeping sun off surfaces and air moving over skin. And in the morning and again at dusk, you throw water across the ground in front of the house. Not to clean it. The water evaporates off the stone and the packed earth, and evaporation takes heat with it. And for a while, the air arriving at your doorway has been through something cooler than it was. You are using the exact mechanism your own skin has lost. You cannot evaporate, but the ground still can. So you make it. Now the part that surprises most people, which is the clothing. You do not choose your summer clothes. You are not permitted to. The shogunate regulated dress in detail, and the rules ran outward from the inner palace to the daimyo households and eventually bound the whole samurai class. Among those rules is a calendar, and it is exact. From the first day of the 4th month to the 4th day of the 5th, you wear a lined garment. From the 5th day of the 5th month to the end of the 8th month, you wear a single unlined one. On the first day of the 9th month, you go back into lined. On the 9th, into padded. These are lunar calendar dates. They do not move for the weather. Sit with that. The hottest day of your year might land 3 days before the 5th of the 5th month, and you are still legally in a lined garment. Not because anyone thinks that is comfortable, because summer in this system is not a temperature, it is a date. What you change into is a katabira, a single unlined layer made of a plant fiber rather than silk. Rami, in the good ones, surviving examples in museum collections, are painted and embroidered, worn by high-ranking samurai women in the second half of the 1700s. And the fiber is not a compromise. Rami and hemp do two things. Silk does not. They conduct heat away from the skin instead of trapping it. And the cloth is stiff enough that it stands slightly off the body, instead of clinging. A gap of air between fabric and skin is a gap where evaporation can still happen. In this climate, stiff cloth is a cooling technology. There is one more garment, and its history tells you exactly how this culture thought about summer. The yukata began as the yukatabira, a plain, unlined thing nobles wore while bathing in the Heian period, meant to keep the body covered and to take up water afterwards. Around the Jinroku years, cotton started to replace the hemp. Public bathhouses spread, and a garment invented for the moment. You step out of hot water, walked out of the bathhouse, and became the thing you wore on a summer evening, for strolling, for hunting fireflies, for watching fireworks. The clothing you wear in the heat is descended directly from a towel. And then there is the problem this channel cannot avoid, which is armour. A complete suit of the latest style has been weighed properly. Across 24 surviving examples, the average is a little over 16 kilograms. Most fall between 13 and 17. The helmet alone runs from under 4 kilograms to 6. 16 kilograms is not an impossible load. Soldiers have carried more in worse country for longer. But weight is not the difficulty here. The difficulty is that armor is a sealed shell laced over padding, worn over layers of cloth, and the one thing it does supremely well is stop things from passing through it. Air does not pass through it either. So take a body that is already failing to shed heat because the air will not accept its sweat, and wrap it in a closed system that traps the small amount of evaporation still possible against the skin, and then ask it to march or to fight in the 7th month. The heat is not coming from outside. It is coming from you. You are generating it, and you have just built a box around it. I want to be honest about what I could not find here. I looked for records of heat casualties on campaign, and I did not find anything I would put in front of you as evidence. So I am not going to tell you that armies fell over in the sun. What I can tell you is the physics, and the physics is not ambiguous. This is the worst possible garment for this specific climate, and everybody wearing it knew it. If you are still with me, the last section of this video is the strangest thing I found while researching it, and it involves 100 lamps and a room going dark, one story at a time. Subscribe and stay for it. Now, step outside, because a city has to solve this too. Edo needs water, and it needs it in quantities that a well field cannot supply. So it builds. Construction of the Tamagawa Aqueduct starts in 1653. The open channel, 43 kilometers of it, dropping 92 meters across its length, is cut in 8 months. 2 brothers, appointed by the shogunate the year before, run the work. 43 kilometers by hand in 8 months to bring water into a city, and deep well water in this climate comes up genuinely cool. In the hot months, vendors sell it in the street, sweetened, sometimes with soft rice dumplings dropped into it. It is one of the very few things in the whole system that is actually cold when it reaches you. But warm, wet, and crowded is also the exact condition in which food spoils and water goes bad, and that is the half of summer that kills people. In the last decades of the period, the worst version of it arrives. Cholera reaches Japan in 1822, coming up through the southern islands into Kyushu, and it does not get as far as Edo. In 1858 it comes again, this time through Nagasaki, carried by the crew of an American warship, and this time it reaches the capital. Contemporary records put the dead in Edo somewhere between 100,000 and 300,000. The city called it Korori, a word that also means to drop suddenly. And it is a summer disease. Warm water, dense population, no understanding yet of how it travels. There is also the smaller nightly problem, which is mosquitoes. The answer is the kaya, a net of open woven hemp with a mesh of about a millimeter hung from the horizontal beam that runs around the room, enclosing the whole sleeping space rather than the bed. It arrives from China, and it starts as a thing only the nobility have. But during this period, it spreads to ordinary households, and it spreads so completely that the mosquito net seller's cry in the street becomes one of the recognized signals that summer has begun in Edo, a city where you know the season has changed because of what people are shouting. So how do you get anything genuinely cold? You do not. Almost nobody does. There is no way in this country, at this time, to make ice. There is only one way to have it, and that is to take it in winter and keep it from melting. That is a himuro, an ice store, a pit or a cave packed with winter ice and snow, insulated and shaded, sited in cool mountain ground where the earth itself does the work. The idea is genuinely ancient here. The Chronicles of Japan place its origin in the 62nd year of Emperor Nintoku, when a prince hunting at Tsuge, in what is now Nara, finds ice that has survived into the warm months and learns what has been done to it. Under the old legal codes, ice becomes an administrative matter. There is a water office inside the Imperial Household Ministry with responsibility for it, and it survives in that form until the Meiji period abolishes it. And in the age we are talking about, ice is not a commodity. It is a gift between the most powerful people in the country. Only the court and the shogun's household use it in summer. There is a standing custom that the Kaga domain presents ice from its stores to the shogun's family every year on the first day of the 6th month. In 1693, the 5th lord of that domain has a stone ice store built inside the castle grounds at Kanazawa, roughly 3.5 meters by 7. I have to stop here, because it would be easy to keep going and paint you couriers running ice across the mountains in midsummer. The academic work says plainly that the delivery does not appear in the Kaga domain's own official documents. The custom is recorded. The specifics, the route, the timing, how much left and how much arrived, are not. Later accounts exist, and they are late enough that historians treat them carefully. So, I will give you what the record supports and no more. The country's ice went to the top. That is the story. On the hottest day of the year, the coldest thing in Japan was in one man's household, and it had been cut the previous winter, and everyone else lived without it. Which brings us to the last thing, and it is the thing I did not expect. If you cannot make cold, and you cannot evaporate, and the government has already told you what you are allowed to wear, there is one target left. Not the air, not the house, the sensation. The 100 stories gathering is a game. Bring people into a room at night and light 100 lamps. Each person tells a supernatural story, and at the end of it, one lamp is put out. Then the next. The room darkens in exact proportion to how many stories have been told, until the 100th would leave you in the dark. Yet the simple version is not the one that got remembered. The elaborate version uses 3 rooms, 99 lamps and a mirror in one, the 100th in another, an empty room between them. After your story, you walk alone through the dark to put out your lamp and look at your own face in the mirror and walk back. It is a fashionable Edo entertainment, and the earliest description we have of it is from 1660 in a collection by Ogita Ansei, where the players are young samurai. It is widely thought to have started among them as a test of nerve, and almost nobody finishes it. The convention is to stop at 99, because completing the 100 is supposed to call up something real, and it belongs to summer. Partly that is the Festival of the Dead, which falls in the hot months and brings the returning dead to mind anyway. But there is a second reason given, and the second reason is the one that stopped me. Fear makes you shiver. Fear raises the hair on your arms. Those are the sensations of being cold. So, a hot country reached for the one experience left that still produced them and made an entire genre out of it. Now, here is the part that makes it more interesting rather than less. It does not work. A shiver and raised hair are what the body does to conserve heat, not to lose it. Physically, being frightened in a hot room does nothing for you at all. They were not wrong about the sensation. They were reaching for the feeling of cold in the only place it was still available, because the actual mechanism, the one on their skin, had stopped working in June and would not start again until autumn. So put the machine back together and put yourself back in that room at dawn. The air is not moving. Your sweat is running and doing nothing, because the air outside your skin is already 3/4 full and will not take any more, and every degree of cooling you are missing is a degree the humidity is holding back from you. You live in a building that has been partly dismantled for the season, interior walls in storage, rooms opened end to end, split bamboo hung outside the eaves, and reed screens leaning on the western wall, all of it trying to move air across you. Before the sun is properly up, somebody throws water over the ground outside, so that the earth can evaporate on your behalf, because you no longer can. You are wearing a single unlined layer of stiff plant fiber that stands away from your skin, and you are wearing it not because it is hot, but because the calendar says the 5th day of the 5th month has passed. If your duty calls for armour, you will put 16 kilograms of sealed lacquered plate over all of it and stop the air entirely. Your water comes down 43 kilometres of hand-cut channel. Your food is chosen to be eaten before it turns. Your night is spent inside a hemp net with a 1mm mesh. And the coldest object in the country is a block of last winter sitting in a stone cellar, waiting to be given to the one household allowed to have it. None of that is comfort, but all of it is load-bearing, and all of it is engineering. And it answers the question we started with. Summer was harder than winter because winter is a problem you solve by adding more layers, more fire, more fuel, and every one of those answers is available to you if you can afford it. Summer is a problem you solve by subtracting, and there is a flaw. You can take off one layer, you cannot take off the last one. You can open the house. You cannot open it more than all the way. Past a certain point, there is nothing left to remove, and the air still will not take your sweat, and you simply live inside it until the season turns. So tell me in the comments which one surprised you most, that 31 degrees here is harder on a body than 35 degrees, somewhere dry, that the law told you which day to change your clothes, or that a country this clever ended up trying to cool itself down by telling ghost stories in the dark. And subscribe.